A travel and book review by Michele Wu of Traveling Reads. The book, Lady Bird and Lyndon, The Hidden Story of a Marriage That Made a President by Betty Boyd Caroli. The location, Austin, Texas, and Johnson City, Texas. Here in the U.S., it is a presidential election year. As the campaigns heat up leading to Election Day on November 5th, I wanted to do something to honor this privilege we have to cast our vote for who we believe should be the leader of our country. Not wanting to go too political, I decided to read about some of our country's past First Ladies. While this year, for only the second time in our nation's history, there is the possibility we could have our first gentleman, throughout the years, First Ladies have had a unique position. While not all First Ladies have been the wife of the president, the majority have been so. And while the First Lady is not an elected official, she still holds a national title that comes with a great responsibility and duty to her country. First Ladies have made great differences in the past in ways their president husbands could not. Since my home is in Austin, Texas, I decided to start by reading about two First Ladies who are from Texas and also attended the University of Texas here in Austin, Lady Bird Johnson and Laura Bush. While they may have these two things in common, these ladies and their president husbands seem vastly different in personality and character, yet have some commonalities in the policies and programs they championed during their time as First Lady of the United States. More on Laura Bush in another video. This one belongs solely to Lady Bird Johnson. This is the first book I've read about either Lady Bird or Lyndon Johnson, and honestly, this was a tough one to get through. Not because it was a hard read, but because of the intricacies of the marriage between these two and how Lady Bird handled being married to this formidable man. Lady Bird and Lyndon, The Hidden Story of a Marriage That Made a President, is not a memoir written by either of the Johnsons, but rather it was written after the letters between the two became public, revealing a deeper look at their relationship. It portrays Lyndon as a codependent, massively depressed man who relied on a very steady, level-headed Lady Bird from the very start. While Lady Bird has been criticized by many for putting up with or allowing her husband to treat her as he did, this book seems to reveal it was Lady Bird that truly steered the ship. While Lyndon Johnson was known for being crude, rude, sexist, and downright vile, Lady Bird seems to have been equally known for being kind, a peacekeeper, reserved with her criticism, and even turning a blind eye to her husband's wandering eye. I struggled to read this book as part of me wanted Lady Bird to be different, to respond more strongly to her husband. I wanted to dislike this man so intensely for how he treated everyone around him. Yet, there is this strength in this woman whom I came to respect deeply in this read. I began to desire to be more like her in some ways. She was a pillar of strength, a woman who outlived her husband by 34 years and came to her own after an entire lifetime with such a difficult man. But then there was the mental health aspect. As I read this book and it shared some of the letters written between Lyndon to Lady Bird, it was so obvious this 36th president of the United States had a major struggle with mental health from a young age. I wonder what his life would look like if he were alive today, if he had the resources we have today. Would he have been a different man? Had he been able to get the help he needed? Or was Lady Bird all he really needed? While the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and the Vietnam War often overshadow the Johnson presidency, there really were some great legislation passed by this president that I didn't realize were from his time in office. Civil rights, major tax cuts, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security reform, Head Start programs, just to name a few. And Lady Bird was right there by his side. When Lyndon would get down because of bad publicity or feeling of some kind of failure, he would often crawl into bed and not want to get out for days. People who knew the Johnsons knew only Lady Bird could rally him. For their entire marriage, she rallied him every step of the way, telling him to just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. He needed her so much more than she needed him. Lady Bird was born in small-town Texas with a domineering father. While she may have married someone a bit like her father, it also seems she had a bit of her father in her. She was savvy with her money and her investments. It was Lady Bird's investing her own inheritance money into broadcasting that led to the Johnsons' wealth. Lady Bird also had a love for nature and beauty. In her decades of driving between Texas and Washington, D.C., while her husband worked in the federal government and eventually became president, Lady Bird noted the highways were ugly and sad-looking. This led to her biggest project as First Lady, the Beautification Act. Billboards were kept to a minimum on highways, flowers and trees were planted along roadways, and around the nation's capital in areas no one else thought worthy of having beauty. Here in Texas, mowing the sides of the highways is delayed until after the spring wildflowers have bloomed. Driving down a Texas highway in March and April is a beautiful sight of bluebonnets and Indian paintbrushes. While Lady Bird's national title and fame came because of her husband's role in the government, Lady Bird truly earned her space in history, not only by seemingly solely keeping her larger-than-life husband going, but also in her own right in the time after his presidency and even after his death. When the Johnsons were deciding logistics for the LBJ Presidential Library, it was Lady Bird who took the reins. She decided it should not be in a small town, eliminating both LBJ's hometown of Johnson City and San Marcos, where LBJ had attended college at the now-named Texas State University. Having always loved Austin, Lady Bird decided on the location of her own alma mater for the LBJ Library. She chose the architect, the design, and even took a crane up to the height that her office would be located on a 10th floor to see what the view would look like. Also based in Austin, Lady Bird's major project after the death of her husband was a National Wildflower Research Center. This center is now called the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center and can be visited by the public on a daily basis. She also encouraged the beautification of the hike and bike trail that ran around the Colorado River, which flows through downtown Austin. This area of the Colorado River is now known as Lady Bird Lake, and parts of the trail are known as the Lady Bird Hike and Bike Trail. I've enjoyed running and walking this trail for years, especially in the spring when the trees and the bluebonnets are blooming on either side with the skyline of Austin behind the blooms. Another favorite place Lady Bird and Lyndon both loved to frequent was the historic Driscoll Hotel on 6th Street in Austin. In fact, after LBJ and Lady Bird's first date, LBJ invited Lady Bird to have breakfast with him the following morning at the Driscoll coffee shop. She wasn't sure she was going to meet him, but ended up walking past the Driscoll and catching his eye through the window before deciding to join him. They had a favorite suite at the Driscoll, and historical tours are given daily at 4 p.m. This suite, as long as it is not occupied at the time, is part of the daily tour. While Austin was near and dear to Lady Bird's heart, and is where she breathed her final breath, the majority of the Johnsons' life spent in Texas was spent at the LBJ Ranch out in the Texas Hill Country, about an hour and a half outside Austin. While LBJ spent his boyhood in Johnson City, and you can still tour his childhood home, his heart was at his family ranch in Stonewall, 13 miles from Johnson City. While today this stretch of road is lined by more wineries than ranches, the LBJ Ranch is still intact. Before LBJ's death, the Johnsons deeded the ranch to the National Park Service on the grounds that Lady Bird could live there until her death. The ranch property, including LBJ's birth home, early schoolhouse, and the ranch house, can all be visited by the public today. The ranch is still a working ranch, and the 142 acres makes a beautiful drive or bicycle ride. The family cemetery also resides on the ranch property, and you can pay your respects to both LBJ and Ladybird, who are laid to rest under the big oak and walnut trees on this vast Texas land. In a closing note, if you or someone you know are struggling with mental health, please seek help. Your life is worth it. Your story is worth it. Happy traveling and reading until the next adventure.